The Obsidian Council's order chills Rigel's blood. Assassinate the human diplomat at all cost. Rigel, the Tsenkethi Imperium's deadliest assassin, faces a target unlike any he's hunted before. Will Foster represents a mysterious new species, humanity, poised to shake the galactic status quo. The Council believes Foster's diplomatic mission masks a sinister agenda, an imminent invasion that could topple Tsenkethi dominance. They demand his death, and Rigel's blade is their instrument. Loyal to the Imperium, Rigel prepares to strike, studying his quarry with predatory focus. But the human proves unnerving prey. Foster moves through the Tsenkethi capital with unshakable conviction, driven by a brilliant mind and an uncanny empathy that cuts right through Rigel's cold exterior. Each glimpse into Foster's world challenges Rigel's long-held beliefs, a mirror that reflects the assassin's darkest doubts. When the moment comes, Rigel's perfect record shatters. He misses, a flicker of hesitation sending the kill shot awry. Stunned, he shadows Foster, determined to unravel this lapse that threatens to become something more. They clash face to face, an electrifying encounter that leaves Rigel reeling. With each narrow escape, Foster seems to sense the turmoil within his would-be killer, offering a dangerous glimpse of a different path. As Rigel spirals deeper into his obsession, factions within the Tsenkethi elite mobilize to correct his failure. Rigel, once their sharpest weapon, becomes an unlikely shield, the only force keeping Foster from the jaws of their shared foes. Trapped between his duty and his doubts, Rigel knows one thing. If they hope to survive the tempest bearing down upon them, he must untangle the mystery of this maddening human. In the truth Foster awakens in himself, before the Imperium's fury consumes them both. Rigel's world tilts on its axis as he watches Zara stride away from their brutal confrontation, her blade slick with Foster's blood. The human lies crumpled at Rigel's feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps. In that moment, the assassin faces a choice that will define the course of his life. He can pursue Zara, finish the dance they started, and reclaim his place as the Imperium's most lethal weapon. Or he can save the life of the man who has awakened something within him, something he can no longer ignore. Rigel sheathes his blade and kneels beside Foster, his hands moving with a gentleness he never knew he possessed. He applies pressure to the wound, his mind racing as he calculates their options. They can't stay here, not with Kral's forces closing in and Zara on the hunt. Rigel gathers Foster in his arms, the human's weight surprisingly light, and slips into the shadows of the Tsenkethi capital. In a safe house known only to Rigel, he tends to Foster's injuries, his touch lingering on the human skin. Foster stirs, his eyes finding Rigel's in the dim light. "You saved me," he murmurs, his voice thick with pain and something else, something that sends a shiver down Rigel's spine. "I did," Rigel says, the admission hanging heavy in the air between them. "And I'll keep saving you, for as long as it takes." Foster reaches for him, his hand cupping Rigel's cheek. "Why?" he asks, his gaze searching. Rigel leans into the touch, his eyes slipping closed. "Because you make me question everything I've ever known. Because you see me, not just the weapon the Imperium created, but the man I could be." Their lips meet, a collision of hunger and desperation. Rigel loses himself in the taste of Foster, in the feel of his skin beneath his hands. For a moment, the world falls away, and there is only this, only them. But the moment shatters all too soon. Rigel pulls back, his mind spinning with the implications of what they've uncovered. The corruption within the Tsenkethi government runs deep, a cancer that threatens to consume everything in its path. And the Obsidian Council, the very body that ordered Foster's death, may be at the heart of it all. "We have to stop them," Foster says, his eyes blazing with purpose. "We have to expose the truth, despite the toll." Rigel nods, his tenacity hardening. "We will," he vows, "but first, we need to stay alive long enough to do it." They begin to plan, Rigel's intimate knowledge of Tsenkethi society, their greatest weapon. They move in shadows, always one step ahead of Kral's forces, and Zara's relentless pursuit. But the net is tightening, and Rigel knows it's only a matter of time before they're caught. When Zara finally makes her move, it's a masterstroke of cruelty. She takes Foster, using him as bait to draw Rigel out into the open. The assassin faces an impossible choice: surrender to the council and face execution as a traitor, or abandon Foster to a fate worse than death. Rigel stands on the precipice, the weight of his decision bearing down on him like a physical force. He looks to the horizon, to the city that has been his hunting ground for so long, and knows that no matter what he chooses, there will be no going back. Rigel's muscles tensed as he stepped into the open, hands raised in surrender. Zara's blade glinted in the harsh light, its edge still stained with Foster's blood. Behind her, a phalanx of Tsenkethi's soldiers materialized from the shadows, their weapons trained on the rogue assassin. "So the great Rigel falls," Zara sneered, her voice a mixture of triumph and disappointment. "Was he worth it, traitor?" Rigel remained silent as they bound his hands and marched him through the winding corridors of the Obsidian Council's fortress. The familiar halls now felt alien, hostile. He catalogued every detail, every potential escape route, his mind racing with possibilities. The council chamber doors loomed before him, massive and foreboding. As they swung open, Rigel's eyes swept the room, landing on Foster. The human diplomat knelt on the polished floor, battered but defiant. Their gazes locked, a silent exchange of strength and dedication passing between them. "Rigel." The voice sent a chill down his spine. Counselor Thrakul stepped forward, his imposing figure casting a long shadow across the chamber. "My greatest student, my greatest disappointment." "Thrakul," Rigel replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "What is the meaning of this?" The elder Tsenkethi's eyes gleamed with a fervor Rigel had never seen before. "The meaning? The salvation of our people, of course." Thrakul paced the chamber, his words resonating with practiced conviction. "We have grown soft, complacent. The humans, they are the catalyst we need to reclaim our rightful place in the galaxy." Rigel's mind reeled as Thrakul laid bare the depth of his betrayal. The corruption, the manufactured conflicts, the push for war, all of it orchestrated by the man he had once called father. "And you, my son," Thrakul continued, his gaze boring into Rigel, "you were to be the instrument of our resurgence. Instead, you've proven our weakness." He gestured to Foster. "This human has unmade you with mere words and a gentle touch." Thrakul's hand came to rest on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. "But I offer you one last chance at redemption. Kill the human, prove your loyalty to the Imperium, and all will be forgiven." Time seemed to slow as Rigel weighed his options. He looked to Foster, saw the unwavering trust in those alien eyes. In that moment, his path became clear. With a speed that belied his bonds, Rigel launched himself at Thrakul, his head connected with the counselor's jaw, sending the older Tsenkethi staggering. Chaos erupted in the chamber as Rigel spun, using his momentum to snap the restraints. He reached Foster in 3 long strides, yanking the human to his feet. "Time to go," Rigel growled, shoving a stolen blade into Foster's hands. They fought their way through the stunned counselors and guards, a whirlwind of lethal precision. Foster moved with a grace that surprised Rigel, their movements in perfect sync as they carved a path to freedom. Alarms blared as they raced through the fortress, the sound of pursuit growing closer with each passing second. Rigel led them through secret passages and hidden tunnels, relying on knowledge gleaned from years of clandestine operations. They burst into the night air, the sprawling expanse of the Tsenkethi capital spread out before them. Rigel pulled Foster close, his voice low and urgent. "We need to disappear. I know a place, but it won't be easy." Foster's hand found Rigel's, squeezing tight. "Lead the way." Together they plunged into the depths of the city, leaving behind everything they had ever known. The hunt had begun, and they were the prey. The thunderous roar of plasma cannons shook the ground as Rigel and Foster crouched behind a crumbling stone wall. The Kell stronghold, once an impenetrable fortress, now lay in ruins around them. Rigel's blades flashed in the smoky air as he dispatched another wave of Thrakul's soldiers, his movements a lethal dance honed by years of training. "We can't hold this position much longer," Foster shouted over the din of battle, his face streaked with grime and sweat. He tapped furiously at a portable holo display, coordinating the remaining Kel rebels. Rigel nodded grimly, scanning the battlefield. The rebels fought with fierce commitment, but Thrakul's forces pushed relentlessly forward. A nearby explosion sent shrapnel flying, and Rigel instinctively shielded Foster with his body. As dust settled, a familiar silhouette emerged from the chaos. General Arkad, Rigel's former mentor, strode towards them, flanked by a contingent of Tsenkethi ships. For a heart-stopping moment, Rigel tensed, ready to defend Foster to his last breath. But Arkad raised his hand in a gesture of peace. "We fight with you," he declared, his voice carrying over the cacophony of battle. "Foster's words have shown us a better path." Relief washed over Rigel as Arkad's forces engaged Thrakul's army. The tide began to turn, but the fighting only grew more intense. In the midst of the fray, Rigel spotted Thrakul himself, the counselor's eyes burning with fanatical zeal. Arkad surged forward to confront his old comrade. "Your warmongering ends here, Thrakul," he roared, drawing his ceremonial blade. The two Tsenkethi elders clashed in a furious duel, their weapons ringing out above the chaos. Rigel found himself frozen, torn between his loyalty to his people and his love for Foster. Thrakul, despite his age, fought with terrifying skill, slowly gaining the upper hand against Arkad. Foster's hand gripped Rigel's arm. "You have to make a choice," he said softly, his eyes filled with understanding. In that moment, Rigel's path became clear. He lunged forward, his blade singing through the air. Thrakul's eyes widened in shock as Rigel's weapon found its mark, burying deep in the counselor's chest. "My son," Thrakul gasped, blood bubbling from his lips. "You doom us all." With his dying strength, Thrakul activated a device on his wrist. Alarms blared across the battlefield as a monstrous structure rose from the ground, pulsing with sickly energy. "Bioweapon!" Arkad shouted, horror etched on his face. "It's designed to eradicate all human life on the planet." Before Rigel could react, a blur of motion caught his eye. Zara, her face twisted with ambition, launched herself at Foster. "The control codes will be mine," she snarled. But her attack never landed. Azara, the Kel leader, intercepted Zara's strike. The two women grappled fiercely until Azara's blade found its mark. Zara fell, lifeless, but Azara stumbled back, clutching a gaping wound in her side. "Foster," she wheezed, collapsing to her knees. "Your vision, it's worth fighting for." As Azara's life ebbed away, Rigel's mind raced. He alone possessed the knowledge to stop the bioweapon, but the price would be steep. "There's a manual override," he explained quickly to Foster, "but someone needs to stay behind to activate it." Foster's eyes widened with realization. "No," he protested. "There has to be another way." Rigel silenced him with a fierce kiss. "This is my choice," he said, his voice unwavering. "The future you dream of. It's worth dying for." With inhuman speed, Rigel shoved Foster towards a waiting evacuation shuttle. He watched as the ship carrying his love soared to safety, then turned to face the pulsing heart of the bioweapon. Rigel strode into the control bunker, his steps echoing in the eerie silence. As he began the complex sequence to deactivate the weapon, he allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in his life, he was truly free. Rigel's fingers flew across the control panel, his enhanced senses processing the complex sequence of override codes. The air crackled with tension as the bioweapon's energy core pulsed ominously behind him. A deafening explosion rocked the bunker. Debris rained down as the outer doors buckled inward. Through the smoke and dust, a figure stumbled forward. "Zara!" Rigel hissed, recognizing the blood-soaked uniform of his former rival. Her eyes blazed with hatred as she lurched towards him. "If I die, you're coming with me," she snarled, her voice raw and guttural. Rigel's muscles tensed as he prepared to defend himself. He couldn't afford to be distracted from the override sequence, not when every second brought them closer to catastrophe. Zara launched herself at him with surprising speed, her fist connected with Rigel's jaw, sending him staggering back from the control panel. They grappled fiercely, Zara's fingers clawing at Rigel's face as he struggled to subdue her without killing her. "You don't understand what you're doing," Rigel growled, twisting to avoid Zara's attempt to gouge his eyes. "I understand perfectly," she spat. "You've doomed us all for the sake of that human." Rigel finally managed to pin Zara to the ground, his superior strength overwhelming her. But as he turned back to the control panel, Zara's hand shot out, slamming a sequence of buttons. Alarms blared throughout the bunker. The bioweapon's core flared with sickly light. The firing sequence initiated. "No!" Rigel shouted, shoving Zara aside and racing to the controls. His mind raced as he assessed the situation. There was still a chance to stop the launch, but the price would be steep. Rigel's hands hovered over the panel as he made his choice. As he input the final override codes, the bunker's comm system crackled to life. Foster's voice, tinged with static and desperation, filled the chamber. "Rigel, what's happening down there?" Rigel's throat tightened. "I'm sorry, Nathan. There's no other way." "No," Foster's voice broke. "There has to be—" "Listen to me," Rigel cut him off, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "What we discovered, what we built together, it's bigger than either of us. You have to carry it forward." The bunker groaned around them as the contained energies of the bioweapon began to tear it apart from within. Rigel stood tall amidst the chaos, his eyes closed as he listened to Foster's voice one last time. "I love you," Foster whispered, the words carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken moments. "And I you," Rigel replied, a smile playing at his lips. "Now go. Build the future we dreamed of." The comm went silent as the bunker systems failed. Rigel opened his eyes, watching as cracks spread across the walls and ceiling. In those final moments, he allowed himself to imagine the world that might be. A world where Tsenkethi and humans stood side by side, united in peace and understanding. As the structure imploded around him, Rigel felt no fear. He had made his choice, and in doing so had finally become the man he was always meant to be.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.